got the big in the room. It's about winning. That's what it comes down to. And Jim Harbaugh is that guy. I mean, he went to Michigan. They were losing. All of a sudden, they were back in. They were the Michigan that we knew of old.
He went to Stanford and said,
right.
I'm going to beat you at USC. Everyone laughed at him, and guess what? They started beating USC.
And that offensive line can be fixed. It really can be fixed. But you got to get the right person in line to fix that. Look, if Kevin Demoff and Stan Kroenke want to win, you have to put the right people at the head. You really do. That's what it comes down to. I feel bad for the fans, and I feel terrible for the players, and that's no fun.
Eric Dickerson will get his VIP treatment back, rightfully so. That was him on AM 570 LA saying he wants Jim Harbaugh as the next head coach of the Rams after Jeff Fisher was fired yesterday. Max, who do you think should be the next head coach in LA?
Well, of course, if you can get Jim Harbaugh, you go get Jim Harbaugh. The guy is a winner. He doesn't wear particularly well over time, it seems to me, in the NFL if you look at San Francisco. But even there, that was a tremendous, I thought over a 3-year period, when you look at all the evidence, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl, they were the best team over that period in the NFL. If it's not about him being an offensive or defensive, mastermind. As Mark Schlereth points out when he comes on this show, people are hung up on drafting, but there's also the element of development. And it's not exactly the same thing as drafting. Ideally, you draft the players you want and develop them in the ways that you think that's the reason you draft them. They can become this guy ultimately. But it's not exactly the same thing. And you look at players, for example, on the Patriots. Who was Julian Edelman? Who was Chris Hogan? Who was LeGarrette Blount? Who was Malcolm Butler? Who are these people? But they get to the Patriots, and because of the way they are developed there and then the way they're deployed, they are excellent, assets for a football team. So Jim Harbaugh, wherever he goes, will do that, it seems to me, and is an elite football coach, either on the college or pro level. And if you can get him, you get him.
Well, you really stepped out on a limb there, and so am I, because I completely agree with you. You want to go and get Jim Harbaugh, and the reason why you want to go and get Jim Harbaugh, and I feel sorry for saying this because part of me doesn't want him to leave the kids at Michigan and what he's built there. I'd like to see him win a national championship before he gets. I mean, we rave about Jim Harbaugh, and I love him. I think he's a great, fantastic coach. But he didn't win a national championship at Stanford. He didn't win the Super Bowl championship at San Francisco. He hasn't won a national championship or been in the playoffs at Michigan, even though it's year 2. And he's clearly done a phenomenal job. So why should he be the ideal individual in Los Angeles? It's very, very simple. Because he got robbed in San Francisco. The fact of the matter is the San Francisco 49ers, they set up there and they made him the scapegoat. Trent Baalke and Chip Kelly shouldn't be there, as far as I'm concerned. What they did to Jim Harbaugh is an absolute travesty. And the fact that he could end up in Los Angeles, out on the West Coast, in the same division as the San Francisco 49ers, I think would be poetic justice. And I think it's something that we all should clamor to take place. I definitely think that's the way to go.
One comment about that, Stephen A. There are managers and coaches in every team sport who mean a tremendous amount to turning around the fortunes of the team. I think about Billy Martin in baseball. He was worth, he could take a last place team the year before, and just through not even acquiring players, using them certain ways and just being a brilliant baseball guy, win the division the very next year, come in second place, just a total turnaround that's unlike anybody else. And I think Harbaugh is that kind of guy. He's so intense, he can do that immediately. Like that year, you go from terrible to really, really good. But Billy Martin was not a long-term answer for a franchise or a team because the intensity burnt those guys out. And the only reservation I have for Harbaugh's candidacy as a head coach in the NFL is in college with the turnaround of players, the turnover rather, every several years, and the fact that they are college kids and you can coach them a certain way, that intensity maybe wears better. And I wonder if in the NFL, it's not that I would ever pass on Harbaugh, I would take him, he'll make you good right away. But it will be interesting to see if and when he has his next stop at the NFL level, whether that wears well over time. And maybe it's with the front office that it doesn't wear well, I don't know. But it seems to me it's possible that his level of intensity will make you great for 3 or 4 years, and then it may be time to move on. I'd like to see him again in the NFL.
It'll be interesting to see their laundry list of candidates right now, former coaches and obviously coordinators. But what an opportunity to turn around football in the city of Los Angeles, that sunshine. Obviously a lot of work to do.
Here's the beauty of it. There's nowhere to go but up.
Exactly.
It's been so awful.
The bar is set nice and low.
The bar is set nice and low. And Jim Harbaugh is like the Larry Brown of football. He's Mr. Fix-It. Let's see what he does. Let's see if that's something that he would take. But they would be smart to extend the opportunity to.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Coming up next, meanwhile, we got a little Jay-Z throwing shade at Knicks president Phil Jackson during his speech to introduce LeBron as Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year on Tuesday night. In his speech, Hove referencing the term posse, which Jackson used to describe James' business associates in an interview last month with ESPN. Check this out.
We know where we come from. We do understand where we come from, and the only difference between us and someone who has their MBA from Wharton or Sloan or Berkeley or Stanford is opportunity. LeBron James has provided his friends with that opportunity, and as we witness their development, and if we're looking up at the scoreboard, very few businessmen are better than Maverick Carter, Rich Paul, Randy Mims, and all the rest of the posse behind the scenes that make it look like they're just hanging out.
Congrats to Jay-Z. Max, do you think, congrats to LeBron. Did I just say congrats to Jay-Z?
Go ahead.
I don't know. Is Jay-Z right to call out Phil?
I don't think it's an issue of right or wrong. I mean, the idea of posse, when Phil said posse, LeBron used it really as a teaching moment about assumptions that are tied to race in his view, and it was a good moment to do that. But I don't know that Phil Jackson meant it that way. And I guess that's what challenging assumptions are. Yeah, you didn't mean it that way necessarily, but you should consider what it, the message it conveys. I think Phil was using posse interchangeably with clique, crew, whatever. But still the point was well taken that LeBron made. To me, the issue is which way is the shade, who's the shade being thrown at? And here it's going toward Phil. Usually, or at least back in the day when Phil had the best players in the world and was winning championships and would do his Sun Tzu thing, undermine everything in the land of your enemies, the press would wind up talking to the enemies about the statement. Phil didn't have to worry about answering question after question about it because he was a master manipulator. But here, LeBron threw it right back at Phil. And who's the one who has to answer questions about it now? And which way is the shade going? It's going on Phil Jackson. He's the one who consistently gets asked questions, where people are making comments publicly like this, etc. And I think it's evidence that LeBron James, as I said last week, has outfilled Phil. This is a guy who has mastered now the psychological and emotional component of the NBA, which he didn't have earlier in his career, obviously, when he choked away the finals 4 consecutive fourth quarters, in Miami against the Mavericks. But here we see him taking Steph Curry's heart. I don't know how else to say it in the finals last year. It gives me no pleasure to say that about Steph, but that's what I saw happening. Pumping up Kevin Love when he thought he needed to do that. Figuring it out with Kyrie when the moment came. And here, guys throwing shade at him. I'm going to outfill Phil Jackson. This is one of the greatest athletes you'll ever see in his glory right now, LeBron James.
I can respect where you're coming from, Max. I'm going to respectfully disagree. Listen, I don't think Phil Jackson is a racist or anything like that. But Isaiah Thomas alluded to racially insensitive rhetoric. I remember I brought up my man Brandon Tierney, who works for CBS. He and I have been dear friends for years. I respectfully disagree with him, just like I'm disagreeing with Max. It doesn't mean that I think they're wrong per se. And I certainly know that guys like yourselves are incredibly sensitive, particularly the things that affect my community. And I deeply appreciate that as a friend. I thank you for that. But I'm going to tell you why Phil was wrong. What Jay-Z alluded to is essentially the subliminal comments that people make that disguise and gloss over things that touch along racial lines. And that's exactly what Phil Jackson did. And I can prove it. Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan is the greatest player in my mind that ever lived. Michael Jordan's a 6-time champion. Michael Jordan also has a guy by the name of Fred Whitfield, who's an accomplished executive in this game. Rod Higgins, who's a former GM in this business, one of his tight friends. Charles Oakley, one of my brothers. These are just a few of the guys that Michael Jordan is considered friends, Worldwide West, and others. I never heard Phil refer to them as a posse. I never heard Phil to refer to Shaq's crew with Uncle Jerome and Mark Stevens and the rest of the crew. I never heard him refer to them as a posse. I never heard him say anything about who Kobe Bryant hangs with. So in essence, what we're talking about is a Phil Jackson that decides to articulate and elocute a position about these individuals as it pertains to somebody who didn't play for him, who didn't deliver championships. But you made sure not to say it about those who do deliver you championships. I don't believe that's a coincidence. I don't believe that's an accident. I'm not saying it's anything racial. What I am saying is that it was clearly meant to be disrespectful, to take a dig at LeBron James, and Jay-Z taking an opportunity to articulate the position of those of us emanating from a black community is more than appropriate. Because what words did he say, Max? What words did he say, Molly? Yep. After he brought up the word posse to allude to Phil Jackson, he said, we know where we come from. Mm-hmm. Then he goes on to talk about Rich Paul, Randy Mims, Maverick Carter, and he highlighted the fact that they were accomplished. Why? Because he wanted to remind the world what LeBron was trying to say. We ain't just some dudes hanging out with each other. And oh, by the way, we rode the coattails of LeBron James. LeBron James facilitated opportunities for us so we could get to shine because the system itself doesn't lend itself towards ultimately giving us those opportunities. If anybody knows this, it's Phil. And so for Phil to say that about LeBron James, he knew what he was doing. It has nothing to do with it. May not be racial or whatever, but he knew what he was doing.
Max, hold on, Max, 1 second before you go, because I want to add more context. Remember that when he made these comments also, he was certainly throwing shots at LeBron, because then he tried to misconstrue the scenario where he was trying to hang out with his boys. It was a Wednesday and have Thanksgiving when he was really trying to have his team over Thanksgiving. So he was
and the team playing waiting.
Yes, and all of that. So there was more to it. He was definitely trying to take shots at him.
That's Phil just bad-mouthing the opposition. That's what he does. Now I want to
but it's wrong to hold on, Max. It's wrong. I want to get to you. It's wrong to just
attacking his character.
Like that. Come on, Max. It's more than that. It's not just going after the competition. It's not just doing that.
That's what he does. He undermines the competition sometimes by attacking their character. Yes.
Let me tell you
what I think right now.
Let me tell you what I think. No, it's not. That's my point. Yeah. LeBron is in control of the situation. Good for him. This is what I think Phil Jackson was guilty of. In his idea, his strategy, undermine the opposition. What tactics did he use? Well, the tactics were to point to something that he has experienced, I'm sure, in the NBA, which is when you see a player and some people that he grew up with, generally they're enablers and hangers-on, etc. And what Phil Jackson was guilty of was generalizing. When you want to make that point, you need to be specific. And Phil was not looking at the details. LeBron James doesn't have hangers-on around him. He has people to whom he has afforded opportunity, and those who have excelled given that opportunity are around LeBron James, and they're there on the merit. That's not generally the way it appears to me. Phil Jackson has seen it work. So he's guilty here of generalizing about LeBron, not paying attention to detail, and that is cousin to stereotyping.
Max, want me to tell you what Phil Jackson is really guilty of, if we really want to just close this out? Want me to tell you what he's really guilty of? He's guilty of what a lot of black folks suspect about what white folks think of us. You're comfortable with us being the show, but you ain't comfortable with us owning it. LeBron James owns the LeBron James brand. LeBron James may be worth close to $1 billion. LeBron James and that crew of his that you call posse, and you did so in a derogatory fashion with derogatory intent, albeit probably not racial, but it might have been, we don't know.
But do you think that was Phil Jackson's motivation?
I think Phil Jackson's motivation was not as simple as you saying it's the competition.
In other words, Phil Jackson has some kind of...
It's not an accident that he went as far as he did. Phil Jackson's too smart for that, Max.
I'm saying, are you saying that unconsciously even Phil Jackson may have some kind of resentment about young African-American men having ownership stake? Because it doesn't seem that way to me.
Wait a minute. I don't know that. What I do know is him bringing up the team plane and how they had to wait for LeBron, how Spoelstra needed to call.
Hold on.
How Spoelstra needed to call Riley, etc., etc. Leading up to his comments, Phil is too intelligent, has been around too many black folks. He knows how that would be interpreted. He didn't care. That's not an accident.
There was more to
I
this
find it
than the
hard to
Posse
believe
comment.
he would. Okay, go ahead.
Well, just because it's hard to
this is
believe
not-
don't mean you can't believe it. It just means that it's hard.
Right,
But don't
well,
mean that you'll believe it.
It means it hasn't persuaded me, but I hear you.
Okay. All right.
All right, we'll leave it there.